Welcome everyone to our 6th annual Healthy Lakewood Foundation Community Meeting. Yay. My name is Becca Boss, and I have been part of our board since 2018. It's been my privilege to serve as board president since this past spring, and I am thrilled to look around the room today and see so many friends and neighbors, employees and elected officials from our local government, as well as our community partners and our grantees. I know that you're all here today because we value health and well-being in our community and recognize that we all have a role to play. We're very eager to share with you today some of the highlights about what HLF has been up to this past year, our work with our grantees and our partner organizations. On your table, you'll see there's a list of our grants that have been made over the course of the foundation, and more specifically, the grants in this past year. At HLF, it's one of our top priorities to build strong relationships with individuals and organizations that are dedicated to serving Lakewood. So I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge how important it is and how much we appreciate the time and effort that those individuals and organizations spend sharing their feedback and their insight with us. We learn with them, we learn from their experiences as grantees, implementing a variety of programs in our community, and it's helped us to refine our processes. Their insight and their feedback is invaluable to our work and our mission. We have a tradition at HLF that we have started every community meeting with some kind of a centering or a breathing practice as a way to have a shared moment together. Chitra Walker, where's Chitra? Has led this over the years for us. She's no longer serving on the board, but we're thrilled to have her with us here this evening, and she really helped inspire us to be thoughtful about how we can focus this time together tonight and focus specifically on connections with those at our table. So we thought, since we're going to spend some time engaging and sharing ideas with everyone in the room, but specifically with those at our table, it's a good chance to meet them. Maybe you know them already, but if not, please share your name, your Lakewood connection, what brings you here this evening, and then, here's your token icebreaker. What is your superpower? So think of this as the thing that when the challenge arises, that little voice in the back of your head goes, I got this. I'm the person to help here. And Kate told me I had to model this for you. So I will share that my superpower is that I'm a really good packer. So if you need to put another suitcase in your car, if you need to put another sweater into that suitcase, if you need 3 more dishes in the dishwasher, I can help you with that. So with that, we'll take about 4 minutes and just go around the table and please, again, name your connection to Lakewood and your superpower. Based on this incredible enthusiasm, I think it's clear that we have a room full of superheroes here tonight. Many of you joined us last year and might remember that we took some time to really look back over the 5 years that Healthy Lakewood Foundation had been evolving and growing. And we talked about our grant making, and we shared some highlights about the survey we had done with our community collaborators and our grantees. And that insight really informed our efforts over the past year. We took a deep dive to look specifically at our grant making and community engagement strategies and to think about the importance of developing an equity framework that would guide our efforts going forward. So tonight, in addition to sort of the traditional highlights about Healthy Lakewood Foundation, we are so fortunate to have with us April Walker to deliver our keynote. She's hiding back there. April is a nationally recognized philanthropy expert. So when you talk about superpowers, she's got us all beat, I think. She works with nonprofits and foundations across the country. She's an equity and social justice champion. She's a writer, she's a speaker, and I'm excited to hear what she's going to share with us this evening. I expect that she's going to inspire us to some really wonderful discussions at our small tables that we will then share with the group as a whole as we reflect together on the intersection of health, philanthropy, community, and equity here in Lakewood. Before we dive into the next part of our meeting, I would love to acknowledge all of the board members and volunteers who are here with us tonight. If you could please stand at your tables. And I should have said, Kim needs to give us a wave there in the middle. Kim is our newest board member. She's been with us for just a few months, and we're thrilled that she's here. And this is her first community meeting, and she's going to be around for a long time. So welcome, Kim. This group, though, is charged with the stewardship of the Healthy Lakewood Foundation assets, and we're guided by the core values of community, compassion, equity, and integrity. So we're proud of the work that we do together to thoughtfully invest these resources on behalf of and in service of our community. The board members at each table are going to lead our conversations and share some highlights after we hear from April. And I know that she's going to inspire this robust discussion and reflection. As always, we're eager to hear your insights and your perspective. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kate, who's going to give us the overview of all that we've been up to this year.
Thank you, Becca. Each year for this annual community meeting, it is a privilege to gather with each of you, as we have the opportunity to meet with so many partners and residents in the community throughout the year. It is nonetheless exciting to be together at one place at the same time. Before I start with our updates, I'd like to acknowledge my colleague, HLF's Foundation and Grants Coordinator, Sharon Schultz. Sharon is actively engaged and instrumental in all facets of HLF's work, from overseeing our communications, facilitating our grant-making processes, managing operational duties, providing board support and community engagement. And while she has more of a background role tonight, she is always very front and center in everything that we do. And I hope that you all get to continue to work with her and get to know her in the year ahead. Yes, 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 yes. Tonight, we're excited to share insights into HLF's operations across 4 key areas: finance, governance, grant-making, and community engagement. And this yearly update reflects our dedication to transparency as a role and our role as stewards of community assets. We hold ourselves to a high standard of accountability, which is why we make our annual reports, tax filings, community action plans, and grant information readily available on our website. So let's dive in. As of August 31st, HLF's investment assets total just over $26 million. In July, HLF received the 4th of 5 annual contributions from the remaining assets of the Lakewood Hospital Association. In 2024, HLF calculated its total spending as 5% of a 13-quarter average of its assets. HLF's Finance Committee oversees the Foundation's investment, spending policy, asset management, budgeting, and IRS compliance. In terms of governance, HLF experienced changes in its board of directors this year, with 2 inaugural members, Heidi Hilty and Chitra Walker, stepping down. As a gesture of appreciation, HLF contributes $1,000 to a nonprofit of each outgoing board member's choice. Heidi selected the May Dugan Center, and Chitra selected the Lakewood Area Collaborative. We are grateful to both Heidi and Chitra for their active engagement and passion for our success. As Becca mentioned earlier, in March, HLF welcomed its newest member, Kim Fennell, who is a Lakewood resident and a recreation therapist for a local inclusive recreation therapy nonprofit, and we're very glad to have her as well. The HLF Governance Committee oversees various aspects of board management, including recruitment, compliance, engagement, training, and officer nominations. On to grant making. As Becca mentioned earlier, at your tables you will find a handout with updated grant making totals, both to date and for 2023 specifically. Please take time to learn more about the organization and grants that we support. We offer 3 grants programs: community grants, which are focused on nonprofit service delivery and programming; opportunity grants for smaller, hyper-local community engagement and outreach projects; and systems change grants, which are for organizations addressing systemic issues to affect upstream conditions. I'll provide some recent examples of funding for each category to give an idea of what these grants look like in practice. Our 2024 Systems Change Grant to the Division of Early Childhood's Child Care Scholarship Program focuses on the critical need for quality child care in Lakewood for families. It enables qualifying parents to maintain employment while ensuring their children receive excellent care, improving long-term outcomes for families across the community. The Lakewood Outdoor Basketball Committee received a 2022 and 2023 Neighborhood Opportunity Grant, and this program provides mentorship and enhances safety at local basketball courts with a focus on youth engagement. LOBC creates welcoming spaces for young people and fosters positive relationships. Our 2-year community grant to the Lakewood Community Services Center supports their food delivery program. This initiative provides home-delivered food assistance and assistance with benefits enrollment, and in so doing, increases access to nutrition and connects residents with additional resources. These examples showcase how each grant type addresses different aspects of community need and demonstrate that advancing health and well-being is foundational in each grant that we make. HLF has 2 grants committees and a learning, evaluation, and assessment committee that oversee various grant processes and their evaluation. Board members are actively involved in reviewing, selecting, and learning from the Foundation's grant making. We'll now move to community engagement. The Community Engagement Committee, which manages HLF's communications, annual meeting, and community engagement plans, extends thanks to volunteers Danielle Locke and Sue Finley for their 2 years of service. They have brought professional expertise to enhance the effectiveness of this committee. An important component of HLF's community work has been its ongoing engagement with the City of Lakewood's Community Health Needs Assessment, an action report, which was completed in 2022. Formed as a committee of City Council, the Community Health Action Team is responsible for building on the CHNA's work and it consists of representatives from the following entities: City of Lakewood administration members, which include Dave Boss from the Planning and Development Department, Chad Berry and Laura Jaisley, the Director and Assistant Director of the Department of Human Services. City Council with Cindy Marks, Chair of the Health and Human Services Committee, participating. The Lakewood City School District with leadership from Lisa Bruning, the Director of Student Services, and Mark Walters, the Director of Community and District Activities. Additionally, local philanthropic organizations with representation from Kristen Broadbent, the CEO and President of the Three Arches Foundation, and the Healthy Lakewood Foundation participate. And additionally, a range of local nonprofit organizations from sectors relating to food and housing access, student services, community information, and access to health care have all been involved in the planning and in the work of this ongoing effort to implement and to enhance the learning from the Community Health Needs Assessment. We have elected officials from many of these entities tonight, and so I'd like to just make sure that we acknowledge them. From City Council, we have Sarah Keppel, Cindy Marks, and Cindy Strebig. And from the school board, we have Nora Katzenberger and Colleen Clark-Sutton. Thank you all for being here. If there are any other elected officials in the room, I would never want to neglect anyone. So if you are here, and raise your hand if I haven't mentioned, yes. Brian Evans, my goodness, so fresh. It's like, I missed it. All right, so Brian Evans, our newest Ward 2 City Council member for Lakewood. Thank you for being here as well. Recently, Chat submitted a 1-year update to the City Council and developed core recommendations in 5 key health-related areas. And these recommendations will guide city planning and inform nonprofit collaborations. And copies of the report are available at the back for reference. And we'll just say that this cross-sector collaboration has been instrumental in bringing diverse perspectives to advance community health initiatives in Lakewood, and we are grateful for the ongoing support of this work. The last update that I'll provide tonight is something that has sort of emerged from the Community Health Action Team. And through this work, we identified a pressing need for a comprehensive resource guide for Lakewood residents, as highlighted in the CHNA and the subsequent action plan. Following the recent August storms and extended power outage, this need became more critical. And in response, HLF collaborated with community partners quickly to create an initial guide of key services available in Lakewood. And I note that it's an initial guide because it is a first step. Moving forward, chat members will work with community groups and be assisted actually by students with Case Western Reserve this fall to research best practices and develop an extended guide. Printed copies of the current guide are available at your tables and in the back. And an electronic version can be found on HLF's website, and all are encouraged to share and link to it to increase its reach. For now, HLF will maintain the guide regularly and welcomes organizations to share it. Chat's main aim for this guide is to make Lakewood's nonprofit services information widely accessible in the community. For suggestions or updates, please contact me or email info@healthylakewoodfoundation.org. So, as you have heard, over the past year, HLF has strengthened our foundation and expanded our impact in Lakewood through strong internal management, diverse grant making, and community engagement efforts. And we're increasingly focusing on advancing equity to address complex health challenges in our community. We'll talk more about our learning now, and I will allow Laura Chalker to come on up and introduce April Walker. Laura has played a key member of as a member of our Executive and Finance Committee and DEI Subcommittee. Laura is HLF's Vice President, and she played an integral role in developing our equity framework and engaging our board in this most crucial work. Laura?
Chalker and Walker. It's a lot. So I get the distinct pleasure to introduce April Walker to you. As the founder and CEO of Philanthropy for the People, April brings a wealth of experience from her career in fundraising, consulting, and grant making. Her work focuses on advancing philanthropy through the lens of racial equity and social justice. With expertise in social service administration, nonprofit fund development, and philanthropy, April offers unique insights into the challenges and opportunities in the field. As we here at the Foundation strive to advance health equity in Lakewood, April's nationally recognized experience has been invaluable in guiding our next steps. Join me in welcoming April Walker, who will share her insights to inspire reflection and positive change in our philanthropic efforts.
Good evening. You can do better than that. Good evening. Thank you. Kind thanks to Laura for the introduction and to Kate, my dear friend, for the invitation to join you as a speaker this evening. I am very happy to be here, but full transparency, this is my bedtime. So I am relying on all of you for some energy and engagement. Thank you in advance. Also, for Kate, this team, and the city that I have called home for nearly 7 years, I would not have missed this. As Laura mentioned, I spent a few months earlier this year working on an equity framework with the Healthy Lakewood Foundation staff and board, which essentially is a fancy way of saying I facilitated meetings and shared resources with the goal of clarifying what equitable grant making looks and feels like. What do we mean when we say equity? Is it really something we can achieve? Beyond understanding the broader context of the term, how does a commitment to equity actually show up in our day-to-day activities? We also had a goal of centering community members and with lived experience in foundation decision-making. We had a goal of expanding accessible language and inclusive communication, and a goal of forging even deeper community engagement and flexibility, because there is no social change that I am aware of that is achieved on a linear, perfect path. And yet, so much about philanthropy and grant making creates an illusion that we can achieve perfection by asking more questions on proposals or restricting where dollars go, and asking nonprofit staff to do more and more without regard for their well-being. I have like a little amen corner. It also creates an illusion that every grant dollar will have a monumental impact, that mistakes and mishaps will be few and far between. It creates an illusion that this nonprofit sector of ours can innovate and scale and reimagine while not investing in professional development and relying on underpaid labor. I'll let you in on a little secret, since we are definitely neighbors and maybe even friends, but philanthropy's posture of perfection and assumption of good is a farce. By its very definition, philanthropy proclaims its love for humanity, a love that is so strong it merits giving to humanity, and for that we all ought be grateful. But I venture that that is a very expensive starting point, setting us on a path of meeting those with something to give where they are, conceptually, intellectually, and often emotionally. Not only is that starting line troublesome, but because philanthropy sets the rules of the game, there are no ways for them to fumble, but many ways for the recipient of whatever is being given to fall short. So I ask, what happens when a community doesn't want that kind of love? What happens when that love of humanity feels restrictive and merits being unrequited? What happens when it causes them harm, even if unintentionally? These questions are neither rhetorical nor hypothetical, and the bad news is that I am not actually here to answer those for us tonight, at least not in full, but that will be another keynote for another time, and my time before you is brief. The great news is that the Healthy Lakewood Foundation was and is a curious and ambitious partner in pursuit of navigating philanthropy's unique terrain with integrity, understanding, and transparency. Our time working together was a very bold inquiry into centering equity and embedding accountability. And tonight, we invite you to join us as we inquire and also undertake the same individual and collective reflection that we have. Join us as we reflect, as we explore, as we seek deeper understanding. Because wherever money and power are involved, we have tremendous work to do, even in our beloved Lakewood. Speaking of Lakewood, as some of you may know, this is a bittersweet moment for me. I stand before you well aware that my days as a Lakewood resident are numbered. Numbered as in, as of next Friday, this will no longer be the community I call home. Though proudly born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, I have been a Midwest transplant since 2013, first making a home in Chicago and now Cleveland. I thought I would be in Cleveland for 8 months. 6 years and 7 months later, it is safe to say my math was off just a little bit. And while I never guessed either city would be a part of my journey, I am truly grateful for my time here, for all the gems, the joys, the flaws, and as it goes in life, the pain and heartache as well. That is not to say I don't have my share of critiques. Any fast-talking, quick-tempered East Coaster would likely tell you the same. But after watching the sun rise and set from Lakewood Park on countless occasions, attending our summer arts festival, purchasing way too many vegan donuts, if you know, you know, trying to work off those donuts at our local YMCA, finding my dentist, my computer guy, my bicycle repair shop, and lifelong friends here, it is safe to say I am moving on with abundant good memories. And I suspect it was simply fate that my background as a grant maker, as a fundraiser, and as a consultant intersected with the Healthy Lakewood Foundation's journey and their true commitment to being a supportive and present funding partner to Lakewood nonprofits and the organizations supporting our community as well. I am sure we all have our own Lakewood tales, times that have delighted us and challenged us, and maybe even some that we would like to forget. If you have juicy stories, you can tell me after. I appreciate that. But I do hope, and I invite you to join me in the foundation in carrying forth a dream for Lakewood that learns from history and represents the best in all of us. Most of us, many of us in this room share a finite number of zip codes here on the southern shore of Lake Erie, and by most accounts would be considered neighbors. But let's consider for one moment that our shared residency does not make us part of the same community. We are not in community, and we are definitely not in solidarity with one another simply because we proclaim to be. There is reciprocity in community. Reciprocity, repair, and regular interaction. There is learning and unlearning. There is humility, there is decentering, and there is ceding power. As writer James Baldwin famously penned, "I can't believe what you say because I see what you do." You may feel affection or carry a sense of allyship towards a certain group, but those sentiments are quite frankly one-sided if they stand on your proclamation alone. Action is where community is built, listening, trying, failing, and trying again. I carry an ethos that power and expertise are in the collective, but not simply a collective of philanthropists, and not actually a collective of nonprofit leadership either. A collective, though, that includes members of the community as contributors and decision makers, sitting side by side, eager for participation, ready to listen, able to withstand difficult conversations and hard truths. A collective that leads with accountability, both to the community and to one another, joyfully obliged to prioritize the needs, dreams, concerns, and ambitions we hear from families, seniors, small business owners, refugees, students, and many more social identities that I cannot name. I have been in many rooms where decisions about programs and salaries and facilities are made by incredible, smart people whose lives will ultimately change very little once they make it home. And yet those who will feel the impact of what happened in that room the deepest have no vote, have no voice, and certainly have no presence to be found. That concerns me every time and all the time, because our best intentions are no substitute for lived experience. I encourage you to consider the same, asking yourself how far removed decision makers are from the outcome of the decision at hand. And unlike the binaries that we are often encouraged to select, consider how our sector might transform if we doubled down in search of a balance, valuing lived experience just as we value volunteers with a capacity to make large donations. Please hear me clearly. I am not suggesting that this work is easy. Community building and power seeding will take some struggles. You can guarantee some bumps in the road. But I am confident that we will stay stagnant if we do not try, and we will miss out on many highs if we do not push through the lows. Fear of what looks difficult or simply is difficult keeps us from seeing just how resilient and malleable we are. It keeps us from building and strengthening the muscles that we need to navigate between the messy middle where we have been, where we are, and where we want to go. Dr. Rupert Necross, a researcher and professor of the psychology of social change, says we must innovate. We must always be working to create new forms of interaction in the complex social situations we encounter. And from where I stand in our society, we have many a complex social situation. So raise your hand if you have ever said the wrong thing. Raise your hand if you have had a very difficult conversation in the workplace or in your neighborhood. Raise your hand if you're still alive to tell the story. Look around and see the very good company you are in. We can all do difficult things. In spite of our many commonalities, though, I imagine many of you still share this unspoken assignment in the nonprofit sector, the one that requires many of us, especially fundraisers, to speak multiple languages. A language that compels and appeals to prospective donors, a language that resonates and reaches the people we serve, a language that demonstrates our expertise and impact to the sector at large, and the language we speak inside of our organizations, behind closed doors, running the gamut from hopeful to hopeless, excited, burnt out, unsure, or simply tearful. I venture that far too often in this work we are choking on the things we really want to say, the thing that is wholly true, but a bit too raw, a bit too something for the particular audience at hand. And while we search for the right words, we find ourselves on this dance floor, rehearsing and performing choreographed moves between funder and grantee. The very specific steps include articulating, yes, we need your money, but not too much of your money, because our organization is making a great impact, but we still have a significant need. And we can totally sustain as an organization without your resources, even though part of our sustaining means soliciting resources from those with the capacity to give, and that includes you. I personally did not enter this sector to walk a tightrope or to almost say the thing that I mean. And I believe we do each other an incredible disservice anytime we hide behind jargon or much of the diversity, equity, and inclusion language we have come to adopt. We have an opportunity nonetheless to move forward, to move beyond our reliance on words like disadvantaged, oppressed, and marginalized. We have opportunity and space to say what we clearly mean, and say it distinctly, and say it consistently, to represent the work and the people that we serve with the same dignity, regard, and esteem that we would hope to receive for ourselves. So, professional troublemaker that I am, I hope you also feel inspired to expand narratives and to disrupt the things that you experience as problematic as well. Whether you join me in my quest to center lived experience in nonprofit governance and decision-making, or bring equity to life by assessing your power and the resources you actively share, or choose your own adventure, know that we do not need to resign ourselves to the systems and practices of philanthropy that we inherited. It is no surprise that this business of money and power and doing good are complicated as we are. But we are complicated and powerful. And as Octavia Butler once wrote, the only way to prove to yourself that you have power is to use it. I invite and encourage everyone to use your power to build a foundation of joy. We are much more likely to see things through if we find delight along the way, if we ignite our curiosity, if we tell the whole story, and if we ensure our momentum is not in vain. Stepping into our pursuit of joy, much unlike philanthropy's quest for perfection, is what will allow us to celebrate our differences, just as we learn and align our values and visions. With that, I say onward to difficult conversations, to disrupting the norm, to setting new standards rooted in equity, truth-telling, community building, and deep care for one another. I hope you share my excitement about the Lakewood of the future. You have already won over this very proud and stubborn East Coaster, so I'm pretty sure you can do anything.
Thank you, April. So, as you may imagine, we've had quite a year of intense learning and a lot of questioning. And April has been our steady guide and kind friend as we have considered decisions and learning that we thought we had gotten right and then realized, oh, we need to go back and rethink that and maybe learn some more. And that doesn't mean that we were wrong or bad, but instead it means we have lots more work to do. And she's been a really amazing champion of our learning and has helped us understand that making mistakes is not a failure, but rather the only way that we are going to get better at doing this work and being the type of organization that we aspire to be. And so I imagine that you have lots of thoughts in your head, as we have as well, and we were hoping that this would be a time in which we could all come together to process some of the ideas and questions that stood out most for us through this discussion and through the remarks that April has shared. And so we have about 20 minutes, maybe just about, yeah, we're doing great. And so the board member who's at your table has some questions to get the conversation started. There are no rules around these conversations, so if you only answer one of the questions, that's perfect. or good enough, or great. And if you get through all of them and have more to share, that's wonderful as well. And at the end of this discussion period, we are going to take a moment and one person from the table, either the board member or another person, to share one question, one key question that you had or one key learning. And we'll share those with the group so that not only your table gets to partake in the learning, but that we all get to come back together and share simultaneously. I'd like to just thank April one more time for these remarks. And more importantly, for what she said, I also want to honor her experience and her expertise. That work that she has been doing to bring her to this moment to be able to share this with us is because of a deep, deep dedication to humanity and to herself. And we have all benefited as a result. So I will let you all turn together to have a conversation, and then we'll turn back outward to each other so that we can learn together, and then we'll close the evening out.
Thank you for your great conversations. We're going to start our report out. Let's turn our attention to Kate in the back of the room, starting with the table back there.
So our table back here is going to start. This is Warren Coleman, and go ahead and share.
So Tony, Colleen, and I had a very interesting conversation around affordable housing in Lakewood and what that looks like for the community and what do community members, what do they think affordable housing is and what it looks like.
Great.
Very good.
Okay.
Awesome.
We're going to come over here.
Hey everybody, I'm Courtney.
Hi, Courtney.
We also spent a good amount of our time talking about the trickle-down effect of the lack of affordable housing and all the other things that it touches. And then we did have a special spot where we were singing the praises of Kate being a really engaged executive that meets people at parks if they have kids with them. And yeah, there were a lot of people really happy that you're here doing the job that you do.
Round of applause for Kate.
Thank you. Okay. Hi.
Oh, that's okay. I have like almost 2 full pages of notes. So, but the last conversation we were just having was really talking about the third prompt, and we got to talking about some of April's discussion, and I had made a comment that when April was doing the sessions with us as a board, some of what she was saying was really challenging to me because I come from a universe of government funding, which is even less flexible usually than philanthropy funding. And so what we did talk about was how Healthy Lakewood Foundation can continue to demonstrate their understanding that nonprofits in the area are not expected to work in a vacuum, and this mentality of kind of like try and fail and it's okay. If that's what happens, that's what happens, and no one's gonna, get in trouble. And then we ended on a note discussing how, in addition to philanthropy and the local philanthropy members like the Healthy Lakewood Foundation, how can we engage and bring together other decision makers, policy and advocacy lenses to really start digging into those systems change level issues.
Thank you.
Very fruitful conversation. I just want to add, and fellow fundraisers will especially know the variance that you have in working with different foundations. And so when you have a good funding partner, you are just so relieved and are grateful for the embrace. And Healthy Lakewood Foundation, they're not paying me to say this, truly is undertaking some really critical work and since they're inviting the conversation, inviting the challenge, I would encourage everyone to lean into that, because many foundations will not even so much as open the door to any type of feedback or critique.
Hi. So at our table, we discussed a lot about how for smaller organizations, smaller grantees, it's really difficult to jump through all the hoops of what philanthropy requires. Even our simple applications and things like that. Some of the groups have one person basically as the infrastructure. So someone at our table suggested that something that nonprofits could really do would be to develop a nonprofit that would do this kind of background work for the smaller organizations. And the Lakewood Foundation does part of it, acting as a fiscal sponsor, but there's other parts like the application and the reports, et cetera, that are all taking away from the programming people's ability to actually run the programs. So I think that was probably a big theme at our table. And we had some good examples of folks that found it easier to develop some kind of a product or some kind of a service that they could sell and raise money that way, as opposed to going through all the hoops to get grants.
Great conversation, thank you. You know, I have a philosophy of letting people be the experts at what they're the expert in, and so much of the nonprofit red tape and operations requires a whole lot of effort to even just get your certification, so on and so forth, your tax exemption. So I quite like the idea of someone to guide organizations through that, taking off that load and letting people do whatever they do very well.
I'm an unwilling spokesperson. I was voluntold, but I'm Eva McKnight, and at our table we talked about how rich in very engaged people and resources and community members and organizations Lakewood is, and also how sparse resources and burnout can be high among folks who are so deeply engaged in this work. And then so we talked about opportunities for additional collaboration and some of this really amazing community level grassroots work that's happening, and also collaboration is kind of a buzzword, and what does it actually mean, and ways that the foundation could be a little bit more of a guide in that space, and maybe creating more spaces for folks to meaningfully collaborate and share resources, but also offer other areas of support.
Lovely, thank you. Couldn't tell you were unwilling at all, so thank you.
We also had a really good conversation at our table. We talked a lot about the diversity within Lakewood and how that might be changing in the future due to different barriers with the pricing of housing, things within the school system, and a lot of other things. And then we also talked about collaboration again with nonprofits, how a lot of nonprofits, again, do the similar work within Lakewood, but may not, again, know that other nonprofits out there exist, so how they can collaborate a little bit more. But on the other end, at Gigi's Playhouse, how they kind of feel like they're totally embraced by the community and feel like the collaboration is kind of what made them successful here in Lakewood. So the question we wanted to bring up today was, how can we embrace the inevitable change while still staying true to the rich tapestry of culture and collaboration in Lakewood?
Great question. Thanks, Kim.
Hi, I'm Melissa Fetterman. I'm a Healthy Lakewood Foundation board member. We had also a rich conversation. We talked about housing. That was one of the first things we discussed as far as what's changed in the last 5 to 10 years, affordable housing, who it's pricing out. We talked about seniors and fixed incomes and those sorts of things. And then we also talked about diversity and how we think of ourselves as a diverse community. Are we as diverse as we think we are, and if not, why? And if that does tie back to the housing. We also talked to a lot of fundraisers at our table, so I asked about reimagining philanthropy. And there are a couple thoughts about, sometimes when there's really strict guidelines for a grant, how that can be really, really clear for an organization, and people appreciate that. If you're in or you're out, so to speak, and if you should take the time to apply. But there's also a conversation about gratitude when you can have a conversation about what you really need as a nonprofit. And there's also, I feel like it was a kind of a good nudge for foundations of, how the questions we ask in an application can be really meaningful for organizations, and how they potentially care for their staff. Asking questions about how do you retain your staff, how do you support them, how do you try to prevent burnout. So lots of great ideas, lots of notes for us to digest, but thank you all.
Well done, thank you.
Come over here if that's okay. Work my way this way.
So same thing, we talked about affordable housing and the changing in financial ability to live in Lakewood. I think we first and foremost celebrated Lakewood and what a unique, special, amazing community this is. In particular, during the pandemic, how we realized that we need each other and how do we support each other and how that's just sort of a way of life here. And I think as we celebrated, it demonstrated itself during the blackout, how within 30 minutes people were offering ice to other people and supporting each other and sitting on other people's porches doing electric, charging their phones and things. So we really celebrated how special this community is and that we came here because of the diversity. And then we talked quite a bit actually about the difference between the embracing of community within our community, particularly within city council, and how that's really sort of first and foremost within the community itself. And there's a juxtaposition within the school system and how some of the youth are struggling with diversity and being different, and what administration is doing to support children of unique backgrounds or lifestyles. And so that is sort of a concern that's many of people at our table were concerned about what is happening within the school system and our children.
Great points, thank you. Definitely a housing theme, and appreciate the celebration of the place where we all live and pay taxes.
So we had a really exciting conversation over here, which is exactly what everyone else has been talking about. But what we started about talking about Lakewood and the changes that we've experienced or seen, and it was a really rich conversation for me talking about, and one of the comments was the continuity of community, that no matter what age you are, you might have had young children, and now you're still, that sense of community is still here. Then we did talk about housing and how we are losing diversity, and how do we maintain what we love about Lakewood as we go forward.
Hi, everyone. We are unique because we didn't mention housing once. We mentioned three things. We really talked about what's unique about Lakewood. And the first thing we talked about was the increased number of poverty, or people in poverty, and how we think that it got better after COVID, but it's worse. Right? At the same time, I deal with individuals with disabilities and mental health issues, and that's also gotten worse. So number one is tremendous need in this community. The second thing that's unique about this community is how hard it is to get funding. Yes, we've got Healthy Lakewood, we've got 3 Arches, but if you go to the Gun Foundation, if you go to Cleveland Foundation, they say you are in the wrong zip code. Yep. Anybody else heard that?
Yep.
Amen. All right. At the same time, the corporations in town over the last 10 years have gutted their corporate giving. American Greetings, anybody get a grant from them this year? General Electric, remember Forest City, remember Highland used to give out grants. They're gone. So our landscape is those corporate donors are down, and now we're filling out 5-page, grants to get a $3,000 grant from a corporation. It's not worth it for us. It's not worth it for us. And so we're left then with number 3. We're back out trying to find individual donors, or the foundations that are left. And the reality is that individual donors is down because we changed our tax laws. And so we're left with that code switch. I felt so seen. Because I go every day to my families and I say, do not allow people to pity you. You might have a child with a disability, there is nothing to be pitied. And yet I have to feel like I flip that around, right? And say, oh, please give. Look at these poor kids in wheelchairs. Look at these people in poverty. Right? And we have to fight. We were talking about how we have to fight them. Why don't they just go get a job? And we're selling their stories about how they're worthy. And so it's frustrating for us, isn't it?
Yes.
So we did, though, and thank you. on a high note. And Gina was talking about how beautiful it is to share our stories of the work we do. And so thank you for asking and having us remember that the work we do is valuable, and even though it's hard, I'm still proud to be here in this room tonight with all of you. Thank you.
All right, hard to top. Okay.
Boy. I know, nothing to say. Our group talked about, they were complimentary of the group here tonight that got together and thanking Healthy Lakewood and said, maybe we should do this more often as the nonprofit community. We have 3 people here at our table that all work in some way with food delivery in the city. And I understand there's really no good communication amongst all of those groups that deliver food in the city. And maybe it would be a good idea to have a monthly email or a quarterly meeting of somehow to kind of cooperate. So the other thing we talked about is apparently there have been some task forces over the years that have submitted reports in Lakewood, and maybe not all those task forces, the recommendations have been followed up on, and it might be good to go through those again.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to be super quick because we're going to do our very best to get everyone out of here on time. It's really tough to build on that incredible conversation that's been had at every table in this room, but we did start from the bottom and work our way up, and I have to say we really focused on the philanthropy question and about changing that relationship in our community. And there was this incredible, compelling moment where everybody went, yep, and nodded their heads. And the question was, how do we reach those who are not in this room to ensure they are playing a role in the decision making? Because we're all here, we knew about the event, we had the ability and the resources to step away from our normal Wednesday evening. And we recognize that in order to truly share the power and to share that decision making, we've got to figure out a way to really activate the best practices to ensure that people are aware and have access and can be full participants in our processes.
Awesome.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start to close up. Becca has just a couple of closing statements for us. I think that last question was a really important one, and I think that's something we should all be keeping in the back of our head. And I'm going to challenge you to remember the question and challenge you to challenge us to ask us what progress we've helped to assist to start to answer that question next year. So we take responsibility for that question and ask us about our learning in it next year, and we will be accountable to it.
We will never be bored. I really can't overstate our gratitude to April. I'm going to have a little moment. I'm sorry. Healthy Lakewood will miss you. Lakewood will miss you. I will miss you. And we are so grateful that this chapter for you included this amazing opportunity to spend tonight here with us. And we look forward to hearing about your next adventure. And we know that you will hold us accountable and will continue to send us prompts and help us disrupt our way of thinking so that we can continue to grow as an organization and as a community. To all of you here in the room tonight, thank you for joining us. Sharing the highlights of what we've accomplished as an organization is only meaningful because you are here to share it with. Your discussion, your participation, your insights, and the connections that we forged this evening and the conversation inspired by April are really going to be the next building block for our next chapter as an organization as we refine our equity framework and look for ways to enhance our grant making and our community engagement strategies. It's invaluable as we continue this work together, thinking about how we advance health and well-being in Lakewood, and we appreciate your commitment to this community, your willingness to listen, to collaborate, to challenge and to learn together. We want to continue to reflect on these insights tonight, and I know that we've got a lot of work to do, but that's wonderful. That's all good news. Real quick, the public service announcement portion of the rest of what I've got to share with you, please make sure if you are not already signed up for our newsletter, you can do so on our website. That's the best way to learn about our grant-making cycle, about community information, and any new initiatives with our grantees and in the community. I think we've heard some good prompts tonight about follow-up and more opportunities to convene, so that will be the best way to learn about those efforts. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We would not be a good learning organization if we didn't have a survey and ask for just one more small snippet of feedback. So on the table, there's a QR code, or there are also paper surveys. So you can fill those out and either leave them on the table, or I think Sharon will be, and we can send them her way on our way out, but we would just really appreciate your insights, because we want to make sure that we continue to build on how to make this meeting as meaningful as possible. We know that a healthy Lakewood is a place where we all care about each other in intentional and actionable ways, and this evening is one of those really important ways. So we wish you good evening, have a safe drive home. Please reach out to any of us with any of your questions. We know where to find Sharon and Kate. Those of us on the board will be happy to stick around, and have a good night. Thank you so much.